Imagine what will happen when Medicare starts paying for Ozempic, which costs $1,500 a month, and it's being recommended for children as young as 6, all for a condition, obesity, that is completely preventable and barely even existed 100 years ago. And 74% of Americans are obese. The cost, if all of them took their Ozempic prescription, is $3 trillion a year. This is a drug that is made by Novo Nordisk, the biggest company in Europe. It's a Danish company, and the Danish government does not recommend it. It recommends change in diet to treat obesity and exercise. And in our country, the recommendation now is for Ozempic to children at age 6. Novo Nordisk, the biggest company in Europe, and virtually its entire value is based upon its projections of what it's going to sell, of the Ozempic it's going to sell to America. And we have the food lobbyists have a bill in front of Congress today that is backed by the White House, backed by Vice President Harris and President Biden, to allow this to happen. This $3 trillion cost that is going to bankrupt our country. For a fraction of that amount, we could buy organic food for every American family, 3 meals a day, and eliminate diabetes altogether. We're going to bring healthy food back to school lunches.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about the cackling hens on The View. More specifically, Whoopi Goldberg, who is upset. She's mad because she feels fat shamed by RFK. RFK, who is going to be Trump's Health and Human Services Secretary, he says he's against Ozempic, right? He's against these weight loss medications that have hit the market that really are for diabetes, but it just so happens that they also help with losing weight as well, too. He says, listen, I'm against these drugs being a first line of defense against obesity. He believes that exercise, diet, eating better foods is going to be the cheapest and healthiest way for our society to fight obesity, because this is a very recent phenomenon. It's not something that really existed not too long ago, and we have to fix the problem that has enabled obesity to become so rampant in this country in the first place and not necessarily rely on drugs. And apparently, according to The View, this is a controversial take, so controversial that they have agreed with Elon Musk, who does support Ozempic. I think he supports the government subsidizing Ozempic for obese people so that they can get access to it and they can lose weight and live healthy lives. And I find this conversation to be fascinating. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll this clip.
Welcome back. There could be a White House drug war brewing over anti-obesity meds like Ozempic. Health Secretary nominee RFK Jr. has railed against them, claiming America's addicted to drugs and weight loss should come from diet and exercise. But Elon Musk, nominee for the just-made-up Department of Government Efficiency and the actual real VP, wants to expand, yeah, you heard me, wants to expand access, saying nothing would do more to improve the health, lifespan, and quality of life for Americans than making the drugs affordable for everyone. Now, most Americans agree with Elon Musk. But, the question is, who's the boss going to side with? But I just want to throw this out because the medical cost of adult obesity-related disease in the U.S. range from $147 billion to nearly $210 billion per year. Yeah. So what is the downside of a miracle drug that cuts that much out of the budget? And if someone's doctor examines that, prescribes a medication, shouldn't that be the only metric of healthcare coverage? Why should a numbers cruncher with no medical background have any say? And I don't understand why you want to be in my business.
The part that is the most, I agree with Elon Musk on this and all that you're saying, but the real problem here is that it only costs about $5 to make these medicines, the semaglutides, Ozempic, and they charge people over $1,000 a month.
Yes.
So even though this is the pharmaceutical issue that kills me, is that $5 accounts for a very slim profit. So there's a business model here. Somewhere between $5 and $1,000, can we not make this affordable for everyone while also allowing it to be a business? They need to allow generic versions and they need to allow competition so people can do it. They
Makes
have
too much money
This
now.
is why people are so pissed about healthcare.
This isn't just about food.
No, it's not.
This is sometimes people are born genetically larger.
Agreed. I didn't mean to
No,
cut
no,
that
I know
out.
you didn't. But I want to say this to
RFK?
RFK? That's his name. Because you're setting folks up for shame.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying. Maybe you don't know you're doing. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say you don't know, you don't realize what you do to people when you say stuff like that, because it doesn't work for everybody. And I'm going to show you, sir, because I weighed close to 300 less than 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And without the Mounjaro, this would not have happened.
There you go. Take it off. Take it off.
There you go. And I try to tell everybody, listen, this worked for me. This may work for y'all. You cannot take it out of people's hands if it can help. Because if we can keep people healthy, if we can get rid of diabetes, if we can get rid of all of the things cardiovascular, what's wrong with trying to do that?
Nothing.
You're wrong on this, R.
Also, the side effects are not horrible. But what does Kimberly Guilfoyle think of it? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Now, Whoopi is offended, right? She's upset because she feels fat shamed by people like RFK, who simply just said, listen, Ozempic should not be the first line of defense against obesity. Let's focus more on the root causes of obesity, which basically are lifestyle factors, food intake, diet, things like that. Let's focus on that first. And, you know, hey, we can solve the issue the right way, right? The natural way, okay? We don't need pharmaceuticals. And I actually tend to agree with RFK. Now, is that to say that Ozempic should be banned or anything like that? No, I don't think it should be banned. But I do not like the idea of saying, hey, we need to have the government pay for every obese person to get Ozempic, which in and of itself will cost money, right? We need to pay for them so that they're not so obese and that we don't incur the cost of having to deal with the health problems of obese people while at the same time paying for Ozempic for the rest of their lives, right? I mean, essentially, you're just replacing one medical cost with another. Yes, on one hand, you may have less medical costs associated with being obese in and of itself, but Ozempic is a lifetime thing. Like once you get on it, if you don't change the actual underlying habits that made you obese in the first place, once you get off of it, if you decide to get off of it, then most likely you're just going to regain that weight, because in a nutshell, what Ozempic does in regards to the weight loss mechanism is just the appetite suppressant. People end up eating less calories, right? And you end up eating less calories than you burn on a daily basis, then you're going to end up losing weight. Now, there are other mechanisms as well, too, in regards to how Ozempic or some of these weight loss drugs help people lose weight. Like, you know, it helps you feel more full, right? It slows the rate of digestion. It helps manage your blood glucose levels. There are other mechanisms too, but again, the main mechanism is just the fact that people aren't eating as much, right? You just end up not eating as much when you are on these drugs. This is why I hate when people say, well, I'm just naturally fat, right? I'm just naturally big. I can't help it, right? It's my genes. This is why I'm obese. And it's like, okay, well, that's not true. We know that's not true because this wasn't a thing 100 years ago, right? Like obesity was not a thing. I mean, you had a few fat people walking around, but not nearly as many people were obese back then as they are today, which indicates that it's not necessarily a genetic thing. It is more of a lifestyle and environment thing. And don't get it twisted. That doesn't mean that there are not people out there that legitimately are obese because of their genetics, in the sense that they have some type of metabolic issue that does not allow them to lose weight in the same way that most people lose weight, okay? Again, there are those people out there that have those conditions. And I think that those weight loss drugs are a godsend for people with those conditions in which they legitimately cannot help it when it comes to how big they are, right? Their obesity, where they actually really do need medical intervention. However, based off evidence, the pictures of Whoopi before in the past, it doesn't seem as if Whoopi has that issue unless, she got diagnosed with some type of metabolic disease later on in life. But it seems to me she was not born fat the way that she is claiming here in this video. And trust me, this is not coming from somebody who doesn't understand what it's like to be obese or to be fat, because I do, right? I have been fat and I grew up as a fat boy, right? But what happened is that I educated myself on diet, nutrition, exercise, and I was able to change that, right? So, I'm one of these people that could play the card of, well, I was just born fat, right? And I can't help it. But I actually could help it because I educated myself. I learned about diet and nutrition, how calories work, how to read food labels and stuff like that. And it changed my life for the better in regards to being able to control my weight and how my body looks. And it's not that hard to do. It's just that a lot of people are uneducated on this, and a lot of people just don't want to do it, right? And also on top of that, add into the fact that our foods are extremely toxic, that we eat a lot of foods that have an exorbitant amount of calories, carbs, and fat. And that also makes the problem even worse, right? We have a lot of hyperpalatable foods that people think are healthy, but they're actually not healthy. They're overly processed, and they have chemicals in the food that make people want to eat more of those foods, right? This is not something that really existed 100 years ago when people were in much better shape. Back then, people were eating nutritious, whole foods, okay? Because that's all they had, right? When you go to the grocery store, you didn't have a bunch of sections full of processed food and stuff like that. People were eating actual real food. And lo and behold, once that started to change, once you had the food industry evolved and you had more processed foods come to the market, obesity started to increase in this country because more calories are in the foods than they were before, okay? And you can see this when you go to other countries as well, too. You go to any of these countries outside of the U.S., okay, the foods do not have nearly as many calories, even their junk foods, right? Even their sodas, they don't have that many calories. In the U.S., we have so many sugars and carbs and fats and just a bunch of added junk to foods. I mean, foods that are readily available. And then on top of that, the government is subsidizing people buying the food with food stamps and stuff like that. This is why the obesity problem overwhelmingly affects people at the bottom, the poor, right? Because the government is subsidizing. And I think part of the solution is to have the government stop subsidizing people buying and consuming all this junk food like candy, soda. I believe it should be banned. I do not think that SNAP should be paying for people to buy sodas and candy, right? I do not think it should be allowed, okay? Also, on top of that, kids aren't learning much about nutrition in school, okay? Kids don't really learn how to eat healthy in school. When people go to the doctors really don't know that much because they don't really take nutrition courses in medical school like that. They spend a vast majority of their time focused on other things and not focused on nutrition and health. So when you go to a doctor and, the doctor says that you're overweight, the first thing they do, they might prescribe some medicine or something like that. They may give you Ozempic, but they're not really in a position to have a conversation about, well, let's take a look at what you're eating. How many calories are you eating per day? Are you counting your calories? Are you exercising? Are you lifting weights? Are you moving? Okay. I mean, that's a conversation that doctors don't really have with people. And the reason why is because a lot of them aren't really equipped to do so because that's not how they're trained. And the ones that do try to have that conversation with their patients, a vast majority of the time, people aren't really looking to solve their issues the hard way. They're looking to do it the easy way, right? And the easy way is to take a drug. Well, let me just get this drug. Let me just get this pill. Let me get this injection. Let me do this. Let me do that. Let me do everything except move more and eat less, right? Let me do that. That's basically what happens, right? So it's really a product of our system being a sick care system instead of an actual health care system. We should be a system that prevents people from getting sick in the first place. And that is what RFK is talking about. He's talking about preventing people from being obese in the first place, fixing the underlying issue rather than subsidizing a solution to a problem that we created, right? A problem that isn't going to be fixed by Ozempic. Because again, once you put somebody on this drug, they're on the drug for the rest of their life in order to maintain weight loss unless they change the underlying habits that contributed to the obesity in the first place. And a vast majority of people really don't because they don't understand why they were obese. They don't understand. They don't really get why is it that this drug helped me lose weight. Well, the drug helped you lose weight because you're not eating as many calories. You're just eating less calories for the most part. Now, there's other mechanisms as well too, but the main mechanism is calorie restriction. That's it. We have too many calories in our foods, and people are consuming too much of this food, while at the same time, we are moving less than ever because of our sedentary lifestyles, right? A lot of us sit behind a desk all day. I'm guilty of this, sitting behind a desk all day rather than being active, getting up, going outside, doing things. That is a product of our environment. It is a product of our society and our culture that has evolved over the years. And again, that is the underlying reason why we have the obesity problem. And Ozempic is really just a Band-Aid. It's not a real fix. It's just a Band-Aid to a bigger issue that we need to solve as a society. And I think that is the point that RFK is making. So no, Whoopi, you're not naturally fat, right? You're just fat because you eat too much and you don't move enough, right? You don't exercise enough. So I don't know what to tell you. I mean, at the end of the day, I think RFK is onto something. And I don't really understand the pushback against RFK because he's really putting a lot of good ideas out there, and he is fostering a conversation, sparking a conversation that is much needed in this country when it comes to health, healthcare system, and nutrition, and the lifestyles that we're currently living. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.